Welcome to JR Texan Night. This is podcast for the adventure of JR. Get ready as Jimmy reads the adventures. The 15th and 16th of January passed quietly, except for a Sunday morning argument with Brad. Most of the 17th passed by quietly as well. By 5:30 p.m. on the 17th, JR is having a hamburger dinner with Andrew Selford and Calvin Brotherson. I'll tell you something, Andrew said. Your dad is a tough man to cross. Brad better remember that. I know, JR said. You prepared for Dr. Wild's discussion in government class tomorrow? Calvin asked. You guys know I am, JR said. Charlie Nation approached the table. JR, I want to talk to you. Well, sit down and talk, JR said. You can have dinner with us and then back off, Andrew said. Relax, Charlie's got something to say, JR said. Why'd you and Karen break up? Charlie asked. None of your business. Seeing someone new now. I see how you are. You should have had her anyway, but you ditched her. Why do you have to be so difficult? I guess you ain't got much to say about it. I've said what I have to say. Daddy said I was done with this girl. You don't give a damn. Just then, Cousin Joe walked in. Get lost, man. 5:50 p.m. Kyle arrived home from Albuquerque, having sold 17 Angus cattle. 13 went at the original price, but 4 were under bid. Tomorrow, Kyle would be feeding the cattle and selling some chickens in a farm in Rankin. 7:30 p.m. In Georgetown, Jim and Betsy are rewatching A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise. 9:35 p.m. At the Hendrick Estate in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., Jim and Betsy settled down for the night. He had a very early morning tomorrow, being prepared for his testimony on Wednesday by Senator Carol Moseley Braun. 3 a.m. Eastern. In Washington, D.C., Jim wakes up extra early and takes the stairs downstairs to the basement home gym. He goes first to the free weights, where he lies down on the bench and bench presses 60 pounds. Back in the Air Force, he could bench press 115 pounds. But over the years, with a demanding schedule in Midland and Nashville and Washington, D.C., there were lots of times he couldn't find the time to work on late training. 3:45 a.m. Eastern. Jim goes into the home chapel on the first floor to pray. He doesn't do that very often, but since he saw his wife Betsy in there praying, he thought he might join her in praying and reading the Bible. The King James Bible, the only Bible used by the Hendrick and Swain families. Jim had grown up Catholic, but he became a Baptist in 1973 when he renewed his vows to Betsy. But ever since Brother Jim Henderson left First Modesto Baptist Church, he rarely darkened the door of any church. Therefore, the one that was the man with a devout faith in the family would be J.R. 3 a.m. Betsy wakes up. She turns on to an old country radio station to hear Reba McEntire. She picks up her late husband's picture by her bed. They had been married for over 50 years. They wed on June 30th, 1937 in Arlington, Texas, and moved on to Swainfield Ranch in 1940. In September 1941, Jeremy Swain was commissioned an Army Air Corps officer, and 3 months before Betsy was born, he was called to the front in North Africa, where 3 months after her birth, the plane was shot down by the Nazis. But then, after nearly a week, he was rescued by the British Army and his Air Corps squadron. He was discharged in May 1944 to return to take care of his family ranch and young family. In August 1950, he was sent off to Korea and remained there until being called home in December 1952. In April 1969, Betsy married Jim Hendrick, married at Swainfield Ranch, to the reluctant acceptance of Elizabeth and Jeremy Swain. Shortly after J.R. was born, Jim was commissioned an Air Force officer, a second lieutenant. During such time, the marriage between Betsy and Jim began to unravel. Tom, the Swain's eldest son, suggested marital separation. In February 1971, Jim was deployed to Vietnam. In 1972, Betsy began dating John Dutstone, something which infuriated Jeremy Swain. In December 1972, Jim returned home but refused to live with Betsy on the ranch. In May 1973, they renewed their vows and moved off the ranch. In May 1974, they separated again, and Betsy moved in with John Dutstone. The couple reunited in September, and Jim was angry to discover she was pregnant with John's baby. Betsy alternated between living with friends and her husband. On February 11th, 1975, Kyle was born on Swainfield Ranch. Jim and Betsy agreed upon a marriage of convenience until 1978, when Jeremy demanded a full reconciliation and moving back to the ranch. On June 8th, 1980, Christine Hendrick was born on the ranch. This completed the family circle. 6 a.m. Eastern. In Washington, D.C., Jim is being prepared to answer questions in tomorrow's Senate confirmation hearings before the Senate Small Business Committee, being prepared by Senator Carol Moseley Braun. Now, sir, you will be asked a few questions on both sides. Senator Graham from Florida will ask you 12 questions. Senator Bumpers will appoint someone on the Republican side, a Republican, to ask you the remaining 7 questions, Ron said. I know this ain't my first rodeo, Jim said. Mr. Hendrick, are you willing to make statements that each business approved by a small business administration is complying with regulations currently enforced by the Clinton administration? Certainly. So when you are appointed to the chairman of the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, you announced that you were against tax increases, especially on precious metals. I can get smart, Alec, but I won't. If you ask me, that I stand by the regulations for small business currently constituted, I say it's possible. However, I must say that there must be some fiduciary changes to how Bill Clinton approaches small business. And when you were appointed to the Texas Railroad Commission by Governor Ann Richards, you promised that you would stand by her on her regulations, didn't you? I agreed there for a time, till I found out she was trying to punish some of the oil industry. Don't you think owning your own oil company is a conflict of interest? No. That company may be mine, but it's a family business. And I can hand over to whoever the hell I want. I have already told my friend Claude while vacationing in Branson, Missouri, that once the Senate committee hearing starts,